The words lingered in the air of the fancy restaurant where we had gathered. I've decided to start a new life without you. In honor of my daughter's college graduation, my 28-year-old husband. Years stood with his glass of champagne still aloft, and his announcement overshadowed the toast he was meant to make. The clinking of spoons stopped, and discussion stopped because to Amelia's accomplishments. 50 pairs of eyes shifted between Gregory and me in the middle of the statement, anticipating my response to the sobs, the yelling. Dramatic departure that everyone anticipated, as opposed I grinned and congratulated you on your. To be honest, I'm 54 years old, and my name is Bianca Caldwell. Up until now, I've been doing a fantastic job as a loving wife and mother, putting my own professional goals on wait to help. Gregory went through 2 profession transitions, 3 company endeavors, and numerous discoveries. I reared our intelligent daughter Amelia during his phases, and she currently sits next to me. Her visage was frozen in shock, her graduation cap still affixed on her head. I caught a glimpse of Cassandra Wells, Gregory's considerably younger girlfriend, who was shifting uneasily at the. She sat at the back table among folks I had thought of as friends for decades, friends who, it seems, were aware of the affair but failed to mention that it was the same Cassandra who had phoned me once and attended our Christmas parties. I went inside my purse for guidance regarding her career while maintaining my composure, and took out a cream-colored, sealed package, which I carefully set next to Gregory's plate. What's this? With a victorious look on his face. Something for you to read later, I said haltingly, maintaining my voice. Steadily, I turned to face Amelia, whose face had turned pale, and gave her a cheek kiss, saying, I'm still proud of you, my love, for your success today. After that, I straightened my clothes and spoke to our astounded visitors. I hope you enjoy your supper. It was a beautiful afternoon, and as I left the restaurant, I felt proud of myself because I was 50. The heavy door behind me slid shut, cutting off the sight of pairs of eyes following me. I was struck by the start of nervous whispers outside in the August heat. Like a wall, but I was happy to be able to breathe for the first time in years. I heard the restaurant door open and bang behind me, and then Gregory's voice, which was no longer confident, but frantic and high-pitched, Bianca, what the devil is this? I continued to walk, giving myself permission to smile a little. What have you done? The packet I sent him was the start of my retaliation, which I had been painstakingly preparing for months. Always been the realistic one in our marriage, even though Gregory had great dreams and took chances, I kept things stable. I was the one who saved money for Amelia's schooling when our family needed it. Gregory made a foolish investment in his friend's restaurant business, and I put in more overtime as a finance assistant. When his midlife crisis forced him to leave his secure job as manager at Trevanta Corporation to pursue his love for selling homemade furniture lasted for around 6 months until he grew bored. My own aspirations of starting a women's financial consulting business were constantly put on wait when Gregory finds stability and Amelia graduates, I told myself. I discovered inconsistencies in our joint accounts 3 months ago, including minor transactions too. These anomalies stood out to me after 20 years of overseeing our family's finances on an account I didn't recognize. Like warning signs, I could have gone straight to Gregory, but something held. Maybe it was intuition, or maybe the gap between us had grown over the last year, but instead I started discreetly looking into it, and what I found was worse than I had anticipated. For more over a year, Gregory had been taking Cassandra and methodically transferring money to a different account, telling me we needed to go to pricey restaurants, buy jewelry, and view coastal real estate. In order to prepare for retirement, Gregory left his phone, and I found the text messages that followed. Unlocked notes about how he was and their new life together. Announcing their plans for the day after Amelia's birthday, at last. Graduation, the day he decided to leave our marriage in style, what Gregory had overlooked or. The fact that I had worked in finance for 30 years was something I may not have completely understood. Years I comprehended money trails, I knew how to trace assets. And most significantly, I remembered the prenuptial agreement we had signed 28 years ago when I had more family money than he did. Strangely, the agreement he had demanded to safeguard his future profits included a fidelity clause. As Gregory and Cassandra planned his escape, I was constructing my case with the clause that would ultimately be his downfall. Spoke with lawyers, and I recorded each covert transfer that I discovered. Proof of their liaison, I created divorce documents, and I carefully planned everything knowing Gregory would want to hold off until after Amelia's graduation in order to prevent spoiling her special day. He was surprised when I served the divorce papers the morning of the graduation, ahead of his scheduled announcement, but Gregory wasn't able to examine the documents because they were still securely concealed in court archives. I didn't go back to the restaurant since I knew I was always 3 steps ahead. Rather, I took a car to our large colonial house in Augusta's historic neighborhood. That, according to text conversations, Gregory had already promised Cassandra the house we bought 15 years prior. That he was unaware that I had stopped in the driveway and quietly entered the area we had shared for more than 10 years, and everything appeared to be the same. The old grandfather clock that belonged to my father, the family pictures on the walls, and the faded leather couchware. In the past, Gregory and I had fantasized about our future together, but now everything was different. Went to the master bedroom upstairs and unlocked the closet, finding Gregory's clothes already prepared for his scheduled departure tomorrow. His baggage are concealed in the back. His consistency made me smile. He had always been careful with his attire but negligent with the important texts from friends at the restaurant kept buzzing on my phone. From Diana, Gregory's sister, who had come in for the event, and even from Amelia. Graduation, I merely replied to my daughter, "I'm fine, this isn't a burden for you. I love you, and I hope you have a great graduation day. We'll talk tonight." For months, I kept Amelia hidden from the reality so that her final semester wouldn't be marred by family strife. Will be upset that I didn't tell her, but I knew that in time, she would comprehend that Amelia had inherited her father's charm and practicality were a potent mix that had enabled her to graduate with. 3 hours after awards, I heard Gregory's car pull into the driveway and open the main door. Slammed the door and yelled, "Bianca!" His scream reverberated throughout the home. "Where are you?" I was peacefully going over paperwork on my laptop in the living room. As he stormed in, his face flushed with rage, I closed the package he was clutching. He held the documents in his palm and demanded, "What is the meaning of this? You served presenting me with divorce documents today of all days. I felt that fit quite well with your plans," to which I calmly answered, "You wanted to start your new life, and I'm just helping. Help the transition, something you didn't have the authority to do." I had every right to break off my steady speech, just as you had every right to. Gregory, whose prenuptial agreement expired years ago, is the one we all choose, Cassandra. His voice became suddenly arrogant. Any lawyer would tell you that I gave myself a little smile, but in reality, it didn't because Section 12 makes it clear that the faithfulness. Your lawyer ought to have informed you that the clause is in force for the duration of the marriage. His face was devoid of color as reality, but you didn't ask one? Buried in the prenuptial agreement he had demanded to safeguard his prospective wealth would now cost him everything, including the house and the Savannah vacation place. His extravagant act at the restaurant had recently become the most significant contribution to our retirement accounts. Gregory's costly declaration, "You can't do this to me. We created this life together, and you decided to end it," he said, falling onto the couch. I answered, "but not in the manner you had intended." Gregory's phone rang. He kept looking at it in his pocket, but he ignored it, probably because it was Cassie. "You've always been calculating, so I'm wondering where he was and why he wasn't sticking to their meticulously planned strategy. But this is cold, Bianca," he continued, attempting a different strategy. "How about our history? I studied this man, and our 28 years together mean nothing. Held my hand through 2 miscarriages before we had Amelia, and I had loved him for almost 30 years. When had the man who had once given me a surprise weekend getaway to Charleston for our 10th anniversary changed or had he had always been this way, and I had been too loyal to see how important our past was to him. That's why your betrayal hurts so deeply," I replied honestly, and his face softened. Perhaps spotting a gap, "Then maybe we can fix this," I made a. People make errors, but Gregory didn't make this one. This was a well-thought-out approach that took over a year, and you methodically moved our money. You looked at property with her. You want to announce our split publicly to humiliate me. His face. "Once again you're exaggerating, am I?" I took up my phone, opened the recording app and played his own voice. "After the graduation I'll tell her it's over. A public environment is better. She won't make a scene in front of everyone then." Cassandra's voice, "And she has no idea about the money." Gregory again. "None. Bianca trusts me fully. That's her weakness." The blood drained from his face. "You taped our chats. That's unlawful. Not in Georgia. When one party consents I reacted, and not when it's in your own house. I didn't record your private. I'm not being mean when we talk about your schemes to swindle Cassandra. Gregory, became irritated and realized that I needed to make some calls. I naturally replied that your lawyer could be an excellent place to start, and I'll be staying at my sister's was sputtered by Diana tonight. House, and I nodded. She's really angry with you. In fact, she was the one who initially. Last Christmas, I saw you and Cassandra together. She didn't tell me right away. Instead, she faced you first, as you had promised. When she discovered you hadn't, she understood it was nothing and came to. I had always been close to Diana, but this was another setback that he hadn't expected. Gregory said, everyone's betraying me, and he never thought his own sister would support me. Murmured, isn't it ironic? I grabbed a little overnight bag and my purse. Packed earlier, and you have until tomorrow night to get your belongings out of the house before the locks are changed. Gregory desperately called after me as I was making my way to the door. His voice, what about Amelia? Have you considered the impact this has on? I hesitated, my rage finally showing through my composed exterior. Don't you dare use our daughter. Gregory, you most definitely weren't considering her while you were organizing your new beachside lifestyle. When Cassandra's phone buzzed once again, he checked it and I inquired, is Kasia at the apartment already? She's moved her, and she moaned. Items in your place that made me grin, including both of your names that you signed in the lease last month. Gregory nodded, becoming perplexed. May wish to inquire with the leasing office about the application being marked for credit problems and never being finished. When the agent called our house phone to confirm the information, I took care of it myself and went for a stroll out the door, forcing Gregory to deal with the first of many repercussions of his meticulously prepared new life was falling apart more quickly than he could comprehend. Diana lived in a lovely. When I arrived, she welcomed me with a smile from her home across town at the university where she taught literature. Passionate embrace, saying, I just heard from Amelia, and yanking me in. Inside, how are you? I'm better than I anticipated, I said. Acknowledged going with her to the kitchen, where a bottle of wine was waiting for them. I never imagined Gregory would create such a scene, Diana said as she poured 2 glasses in front of the restaurant. I clarified that it was intended to embarrass me, and he's gone crazy. I was unable to defend myself without making Diana look emotional because the glass was a public rejection. My brother has always had a penchant for drama, but this is more than I could have ever imagined. We took up residence in her sunroom, which was encircled by bookshelves and potted plants. Diana had never married, preferring to. Over the years, I had occasionally envied her independence and intellectual endeavors. She questioned, Freedom, what did you put in that envelope that upset him so much? I went over the details of the divorce case, the proof of his financial dishonesty, and, above all, the prenuptial agreement that would give him significantly less than what he had intended, which made me laugh. Remember how scared he was when he insisted on it? His father had just handed him the money for his first business. The irony is that she laughed furiously about defending it. Delicious, I took a long breath before answering Amelia's phone. Responding to Mom, she stated in a tight voice right away, I'm going over to Aunt. Diana interrupted her father, saying, You don't have to, honey. I'm already on my way. He's speaking terrible things about you, telling everyone that you've gone insane and that you've been preparing this for months. Naturally, he was a jerk who constantly fabricated stories to portray himself as the victim. I let him speak and told him that the truth will become apparent in 20 minutes. Amelia then showed up. She fell while still wearing her graduation gown, her makeup ruined from crying. Like she did after a childhood nightmare, she threw herself into my arms and asked, Why didn't you tell me? With her voice muffled against the I didn't want to ruin your final semester, I said over my shoulder, adding that you worked so difficult for today that she withdrew, cleaning her eyes properly, and Dad took care of. We proceeded to Diana's living room, where Amelia eventually received the complete narrative, destroying it nevertheless. I knew how Gregory and Cassandra had planned, how they had cheated, and how I had found out about the affair. Amelia acknowledged that there was a problem with Dad and that he had been distracted. He's constantly on his phone, but I never thought we'd all want to watch these things and people we love, Diana murmured softly as my phone rang and my lawyer, Philip Anderson, texted me. The accounts I had named were frozen until the divorce, but the emergency filing had been authorized. Gregory's access to money was now restricted. He had enough for living expenses but not enough to continue. I showed Diana the message about his intended property acquisitions with Cassandra. And Amelia responded firmly that he deserves it. Although I was touched by my daughter's devotion, I told her that he was still your father. Amelia shook her head, perhaps eventually. Your bond with him is distinct from what's going on between us. I can't even look at him right now, though, because this morning he gave me a hug and expressed his pride while preparing to. Hours later, the doorbell rang, interrupting our family's celebration. Diana went to respond to the conversation, but she returned a little while after with a distressed. It's Gregory, she added, and he's not alone. I pretended to be someone else. Gregory and Cassandra were taken by Diana into the living area. Cassandra appeared uneasy as she shifted her weight from. She was 37 years old, and her eyes were flying across the room from one foot to the other. Despite not being a trophy wife, she is still 17 years my junior and has shoulder-long hair. Gregory, on the other hand, had blonde hair and the assurance that comes from never having experienced true adversity. His earlier desperation had turned to rage, and he was enraged. Diana, you must stop this madness, he insisted. Unfreeze the account so we can talk about. This is like sensible adults. Amelia got up and positioned herself a little. Before telling everyone that you were leaving Mom, perhaps you could have attempted to be reasonable in front of me. As though he had just noticed our daughter Amelia, Gregory's eyes brightened. This isn't about you. Isn't about me, she repeated incredulously, you blew. It doesn't include me, but Cassandra touched Gregory's arm on my graduation day. Perhaps we should leave, but he dismissed her, saying, no, I won't go until Bianca consents to be. My sister-in-law appeared to be the most sensible person about this, as Diana folded her arms. Gregory, you are the only sensible person in this situation. I stayed sitting and watched the years had passed while the drama played out, and I had been the one to mediate it. Dispute resolution and maintaining everyone's happiness was a demanding responsibility, and I had. Lastly, I stated that the accounts would stay frozen until the preliminary hearing. Calmly, the judge will decide on the proper asset division in 3 days at. 3 days ago, Gregory stammered, what am I? I reminded him of your personal account, which you have been required to use for 3 days. Cassandra's head was lashed for directing funds into what should have been enough for the previous year. Regarding Gregory, you have a different account. How much is in it? It was evident that Gregory hadn't been completely honest with Cassandra, and an intriguing dynamic was developing. Bianca, either Gregory disregarded her inquiry or this is vindictive. Isn't like you, maybe you didn't know me well, I answered, just as I evidently never truly knew you. Amelia turned to Cassandra and asked, did you notice that he would make such a big announcement at my graduation? Festivity, Cassandra had the grace to appear embarrassed, which led me to believe he was leaving. Today's announcement was to speak privately with your mother. Cracks were already appearing in their united front when Gregory suddenly threw her a betrayed look, saying, I think you both. You've upset Amelia enough for one day, Amelia, Diana remarked firmly, so you should go. Gregory begged, don't you realize that relationships change from time to time? People grow apart. I had never seen my daughter's face harden like this before. Previously, I realized that you are a coward for not even being able to give Mom the respect of a private chat. I know that when I was working 2 jobs to help pay for my family, you were stealing from us. Texts, as you mentioned that money was limited, but that's not how it. Amelia interrupted him, saying, please leave, Dad. I can't look at you. Gregory finally turned to leave, but the silence that followed was deafening. At the door, with Cassandra behind him, he stopped and turned around to face me. I caught his stare and said, this isn't over, Bianca. I'll fight you on this. Steadily, you're welcome to give it a shot. Amelia passed out after they departed. I put my arm around her as she sobbed beside me on the couch. I've never spoken to Dad in such a way. Diana brought us to realize that sometimes it hurts to stand up for what's right. As she raised her, she exclaimed, fresh glasses of wine to new beginnings. Nonetheless, I did believe that this conclusion marked the start of something new. On a soggy Tuesday morning, my lawyer and I arrived at the preliminary hearing, which was held in a small courtroom. Gregory arrived with a lawyer, but Philip quickly hired a young associate from a specialist firm. Gregory's bad choice of attorney in corporate law, not family matters. As a result of his hasty preparation, an older woman was judged. With keen eyes and no tolerance for hyperbole went over the prenuptial agreement. After carefully reviewing her reading, she stated, this document seems to be in order. Do you question the legitimacy of the glasses Gregory's lawyer gave him? The young lawyer cleaned his. Your Honor, given the length of the arrangement, we feel that it has expired. Section 18 makes it very evident that the period is for the duration of the judge read the marriage and any court cases that followed its dissolution. Gregory leaned closer to say, there is no expiration date indicated. Whisper frantically to his attorney, who appeared more uneasy, and the judge went on, the evidence of regular money transfers seems to be in violation of Section's financial disclosure obligations. 23. After paging through the documents, she searched for I am ruling to maintain the suspension of joint accounts while Mr. Caldwell's personal account is fully investigated financially. Will continue to be available to him, and Mrs. Caldwell will keep the family home during the proceedings as stated in the infidelity clause of the prenuptial agreement. Gregory's face reddened. This is outrageous, he mumbled in a dark crimson voice loud enough for me to hear. The judge gave him a severe look and said, Mr. Caldwell, I would like you to go over more carefully read the agreement you signed. The court will meet again in 30 days for the complete hearing following discovery. Finished. Gregory walked up to me in the corridor as we were leaving the courthouse. Bianca, please, we need to talk about this logically. 28 years of marriage must mean something. It meant everything to me. Responded until you decided otherwise, at which point I left him standing by himself. Word swiftly circulated across our courthouse corridor as the consequences of his decisions finally started to weigh on us. Friends from my social circle contacted every day, some offered to help, while others wanted to gossip. Remained respectfully silent about the specifics, stating only, Gregory and I are. These things separate. In the meanwhile, Gregory's cautiously built facade was undermining the successful reputation he had built. A dedicated family guy and businessman was irreparably damaged. Due to the financial embargo, he was unable to fulfill his commitments to Cassandra regarding the beachside property. They had intended to buy a fancy car, but the luxury vehicle he had paid for had to be cancelled. Diana called me 2 weeks following the hearing, her voice tinted with amusement. Did you hear that Cassie recently moved out? I wasn't really shocked. However, the quickness was remarkable, and it seems that she found out Gregory's firm wasn't doing as well as he stated. The significant savings he mentioned are non-existent. I couldn't help but laugh when she informed her friend Jennifer that she didn't sign up to date a man who had financial difficulties. Was always skilled at fabricating illusions, but I was. Gregory, I gained freedom by re-establishing the financial stability I had always kept apart from our joint accounts. Unexpectedly, I leased a modest office building downtown and started preparing the 2 women going through their own divorces were my first clients, a consultation I had fantasized about for years. I became increasingly skilled in assisting women in understanding their financial situation throughout significant life upheavals, such as divorces. In a way, my corporate job was immediately rewarding after I became a widow. Amelia had never taken a position with a Charleston marketing company. Phoned me frequently and said, I'm so proud of you, Mom, when I shared my development. You're helping people during their worst moments, says the customer list. I'm preparing women for whatever, I said, just doing what I wish someone had done for me earlier. It was new that I might be required for my knowledge instead of my caregiving. 300 words, an uplifting experience, and the final divorce hearing took place on. An appropriate conclusion to a phase of my life that had lasted over 3 years would have been our 29th anniversary. Decades later, I discovered that Gregory's business was floundering without my help. He arrived looking haggard. Financial assistance and direction, Kasia had already left and was seeing a real estate developer from. After hearing the whole truth about his past, Savannah, the most of our mutual acquaintances had cut ties with him. Deceit, the judge maintained the prenuptial agreement in its entirety, and Gregory took his personal belongings with him. Assets, his faltering company, and the funds in his personal account, which, after paying his lawyer, were hardly enough to buy a modest apartment, but I kept our house, our retirement funds, and 70% of our joint property. Investments precisely as the prenuptial agreement specified that the court system was poetic in situations of adultery. Gregory's demise was caused by the very paperwork he had demanded in order to defend himself. Gregory came up to me as we were leaving the courtroom and said, "One last time, I made a terrible mistake." I interrupted the door gently but firmly. "Is there any chance we could not do this quietly?" "Is closed," he responded, and for the first time, I thought he did. "I hope you You deserve to be happy, Bianca. It was possibly the first sincere thing he did. Had informed me 6 months later that my consulting Caldwell Financial Transitions was doing well. I had hired 2 people and relocated from the tiny office to a bigger one. My area of expertise was assisting women in securing their financial futures, especially during significant life transitions. Amelia frequently came to visit, proud of what I had constructed. You know what's ironic? She said. If Dad had been truthful from the start, he might have on one visit saved half of everything. Sometimes, individuals are only able to see what they desire right now. In response, the woman who had previously identified as Amelia's mother and Gregory's wife had found a new identity. The envelope I gave Gregory at the restaurant wasn't simply my way out, it was also a mentor, company owner, and advocate. Later, I discovered that it had been the key to a door I was unaware was behind it. Not only retribution but also reclaiming something in order to secure my financial future. Much more valuable than I am.